the emotional health outcomes that they want. I studied at U of A for 4 years, just finished in May. I studied computer science and economics. In terms of my self-care activity, I have been doing a lot of walking. Walking really helps me kind of clear the mind, get in a meditative state. I've also deleted all of my social media. That's been super awesome. I have very quickly become a LinkedIn addict though, so that is kind of a problem, but it is a lot better than Snapchat and Instagram. In terms of new hobbies, I've been getting into dancing, and I also really want to get into horse riding. I've heard horse riding can almost like help you build character, and that would be really interesting to me. So that's a bit about myself. Can you go back to the first slide if you don't mind? So before I start here, it's actually funny. I found out about half an hour ago, today is World Mental Health Day. Like, it is the World Day for mental health. I work at a mental health company. I work with customers who are therapists, mental health people. Not one single person told me that it was Mental Health Day until I went on LinkedIn and I saw Connor Fletcher post a LinkedIn post about it, and I was walking on the way here, so I thought it was super ironic that I'm talking today about emotional well-being and entrepreneurship. So next slide real quick. I talked a bit about myself. I'm a recent graduate. I'm a Tucson native, been here about 15 years now. I went through BASIS for high school. I spent 4 years at U of A, and now my first job out of college is founding Horizon Mind, or co-founding, where we're using virtual reality and working with a lot of recovery centers across Tucson to really help people reach the therapeutic and trauma recovery outcomes that they want. For me personally, I'm really interested in learning about technology, entrepreneurship, and I'm really passionate about mental health and helping other people. In fact, it's one of my life missions to help people understand emotional health and recover from trauma. And that's why I work hard every single day, because this stuff and the people you meet on this journey has been really meaningful to me. So the goal of today's presentation is really to answer 3 questions. And I really appreciate all you guys for the engagement before this presentation, because as you guys know, mental health and entrepreneurship aren't topics that typically go hand in hand, right? When you think of entrepreneurship, you think of vision, building a business, building wealth, working long hours. No one ever thinks about taking care of your emotional mental health, and I wasn't really sure how the audience would respond to this topic, but it's really cool to see that you guys understand, even with all of your ambitions, it's important to have practices that take care of your mental health, because otherwise there's no way you're going to ultimately achieve the goals that you want with your venture, right? So the 3 questions I'm here to answer is, first, really, what is emotional well-being? What does it refer to? What does it look like? My second question and goal is to convince you guys that emotional well-being not only matters to an entrepreneur, but matters more to an entrepreneur than almost any other person on earth. And then lastly, the most important part is I want everyone to come away with knowledge and practices that they can do to achieve and maintain their emotional well-being over the long term. So I have 2 goals here. First one is really to be interactive. So I'll have a couple activities. I'm sure most of you have used Menti in some of your classes. So I'll have a few activities kind of around what you think of mental wellness, what self-care activities you do. And the second goal is really to tie this to your entrepreneurial journey. One thing I found is that there's different types of entrepreneurs, right? Some people, like myself, really want to have a startup, have an exit. It's kind of like my full-time job. I have a 5 to 10 year time frame for that. Other people have a lot of small ventures. You're building washing businesses, you're building clothing businesses. Other people want to have more of a lifestyle business with entrepreneurship. So my goal is, no matter whether you want to be Elon Musk or you want to be someone who has financial freedom because of your business, I'm hoping emotional well-being will be relevant no matter what kind of path you're on. So the very first topic I want to cover really is, what is emotional well-being? When we talk about mental health, everyone kind of nods along and says, yeah, mental health is super important, right? But when I really ask, what does mental health mean? I think it's really vague for a lot of people. Does mental health only exist in the context of talking about issues like anxiety and depression? Does mental health really just mean being mindful and having meditation apps and having practices? Or does mental health mean a state of balance and thriving where you're not just not depressed, but also having emotional well-being, right? So the first question I really want to have everyone think about is, when you hear this general ambiguous term of mental health, mental well-being, mindfulness, wellness, emotional health, what is it that you think about? So can you toggle to the Chrome slide? There it is, yeah. So the first thing here, oh, someone did that already, cool. If you wouldn't mind going to menti.com, putting in the code and just giving me your definition of what you think about when you hear the term mental health. I'll give a few minutes for this. You go to menti.com. Most students have done this like 100 times in their classes. And then there's and then there's a code right here, and then you'll see the question. You just type in kind of like a couple words.
So once you're all at menti.com, it's going to be code 29798282. And if anybody needs that again, just raise your hand.
Is this supposed to do that?
I don't think so. Did you?
You have that too?
Are you on menti.com or menti like?
Menti.com.
Maybe just try refreshing and put the code back in. Okay, this is great. Crying. Okay. We got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, I'll just start reading these. One person says meditation, nutrition, sleep, exercise, and Andrew Huberman. One person said the opposite of mental illness, wellness, relaxation, stress-free reflection. One said crying, clarity, peace and love, self-knowledge and understanding, peace from within. I like that one. Emotional well-being, being in control of your emotions, finding ways to cope with day-to-day stressors using tools and resources, clarity of mind and thought, purpose-driven life, balance, and meditation, exercise, brainstorming, and clarity. Is there anyone else that's still waiting on the response? Okay, perfect. Well, this is awesome. And there really is no wrong answer, right? These are really just different ways of viewing kind of health in the mind in different ways. So I see some people has the classic, the opposite of mental wellness, right? The absence of diagnosable disorders like depression, anxiety, whatnot. Some people, it's more just about, relaxation, being free of stress, having wellness. For some people, it's not just mental health in like a emotional sense, but also kind of like a cognitive neuroscience sense, right? Andrew Huberman, nutrition, sleep, exercise. Some people, it's more about, clarity and being able to see things from a place of peace, right? Clarity, peace, love, clarity of mind and thought, purpose-driven life, peace from within. One person has the more like the definition that I'll be going for, which is emotional well-being, being in control of emotions. So these are all really good ways of understanding kind of health in the mind. And I think these are all fantastic ways of understanding. But what I want to do is really take a particular angle and use that angle in the context of entrepreneurship, because we want to be clear on what it means to be emotionally well, right? We don't want to just say, be emotionally well. It could mean opposite of mental illness. It could mean peace. It could mean meditation. I want to really precisely define what I mean when you're in a place of emotional well-being and argue why you should be, or you should aim for emotional well-being if you want to be an entrepreneur and be successful over the long term. So if we go back to the deck, on the next slide, I define emotional well-being really as the ability to produce positive emotions, moods, thoughts, and feelings, and adapt when confronted with adversity and stressful situations. So this is really taking mental health and transforming mental into emotional and health into well-being, right? Mental health, it could mean, kind of emotional health with depression, anxiety. It could mean cognitive health. It could mean a lot of different things. But really, when we're referring to mental health in the classic sense, it's really about your emotions. What is your emotional relationship with the world? Are you producing positive emotions, thoughts, perceptions when you're engaging with the world? And then when it comes to well-being, is it the absence of issues when it comes to your emotional side, or is it really a state of thriving and control over your emotions? So emotional well-being really is, well-being and positivity in terms of your relationship with yourself, how you view yourself and how you talk to yourself, your relationships with other people, friends, families, partners, the ability to find enjoyment in mindfulness, the ability to have a sense of purpose, and then also the resilience and the ability to deal with challenges and negativity in a way that's healthy and doesn't distort your sense of self, right? So next slide again. The key here is really the two parts, emotional well-being. It's dealing with one's emotions and perception of themselves in the outside world, and it's really in a positive, balanced state rather than the absence of negative. So just to summarize over time, emotional well-being is a state of positivity and balance in one's emotional relationship with the self, others, and the world. And this is really best summarized on the next slide by a quote by Adam Grant, which is that the absence of mental health doesn't mean the presence of, or the absence of mental illness doesn't mean the presence of mental health. Even if you're not depressed or burned out, you might be languishing, feeling a sense of emptiness and stagnation, meh. Naming it is a step towards lighting a path out of the void. So, with that being said, that emotional well-being isn't just not being depressed or anxious, but also not being in a funk and being in a state of wellness and balance and control. I'd like to go back to Mentee and ask what people think about when they hear the term emotional well-being as opposed to mental health. And there you go, awesome. The exact same one. Did you refresh?
2979 828. 2979 828.
Cool, we got some good responses. I see grounded and control, being able to understand and control your emotions, checking up on yourself and loved ones, being vulnerable, knowing that it's okay to be feeling down. We all experience these feelings. Holistic, well-rounded, and healthy, able to process emotions in a healthy way, taking active measures to ensure having a healthy state of mind, seeking positive emotions, emotionally strong and stable, having the comeback mentality, and emotional stability, stoicism, having a clear solution to whatever problem arises, being alone but not lonely. So these are fantastic responses. I love everything you guys said. So, part two of this talk is really understanding why emotional well-being matters to an entrepreneur. Why, if you're either an entrepreneur now or you have visions of being an entrepreneur, you should actively seek to build emotional well-being into kind of your practice in your life. And the first reason is that entrepreneurs, believe it or not, do struggle a lot with mental health. So, 72% of entrepreneurs are directly or indirectly affected by mental health issues, compared to only 48% of non-entrepreneurs. Almost half of entrepreneurs deal with at least one mental illness, whether it's depression, anxiety, bipolar, addiction, ADD, ADHD. And for depression in particular, 30% of entrepreneurs experience it, which is double the 15% of the general population. Lastly, in a survey of more than 300 entrepreneurs, 63% of business owners report that they've dealt with or are currently dealing with burnout. Mental health is a challenge for entrepreneurs. When we think about entrepreneurship, we think a lot about the highs, right? Being in front of investors, scaling your business, all the accomplishments, but underneath, it's a very stressful and difficult journey sometimes. And since people don't talk about it, a lot of entrepreneurs, almost double that of the regular population, do statistically deal with different mental health conditions. And I think part of the reason for that, next slide, is that being an entrepreneur is hard, right? This is not an easy thing. Every business owner's goals, timelines, and venture may differ, but I think every entrepreneur faces certain commonalities, right? One, if you're an entrepreneur, you are ambitious, you have a vision, and you want to create some sort of change. And in creating that sort of change, you're seeing yourself and other people as well are the face of that change, and you're seen as a leader trying to drive some impact or change in the world. In terms of your venture, you're building that business, you have responsibility over a venture, and in doing so, you're taking a risk, and you're always dealing with the risk of failure and the feelings of uncertainty. So really, this is something that humans aren't designed to deal with very well, right? Dealing with uncertainty, having responsibility, pushing the edge of what's possible and what's not possible, and these factors are stressful and challenging to any individual. So emotional well-being is not only not built into the entrepreneurial experience, it's almost built out of the entrepreneurial experience because there's all sorts of things dragging you down and kind of, closing you up, right? So we really have to be conscious of this and build well-being into entrepreneurship because it doesn't exist in the absence of us doing it ourselves. I think entrepreneurs, as a last sort of problem, are affected by hustle culture, right? When it comes to business, people care about results, people care about growth, people care about how many hours you work, and many people, especially the ambitious ones with busy minds, feel that it's a virtue to work longer hours than other people, at later hours than other people, to have a busy mind all the time. It's seen as something virtuous and productive to only have a gas pedal and not to have any brake, which is difficult for emotional health. And hopefully most of you guys, can see this and say, okay, I recognize that this might not be the best, this might be a problem, but there's always some people that say, look, working super hard, having all this pressure is just a necessary sacrifice to build what I want to do. Work-life balance is kind of for losers. You can sleep when you're dead. And at the end of the day, if I'm working 80 hours a week, I'm getting more done than if I'm working 50 hours a week, right? But for the most part, that really isn't true. Well-being impacts your performance, and having work-life balance and being emotionally well allows you to perform at a higher level and be more productive than if you ignored all the stuff and worked just 80 hours a week with no balance in between. So for example, it's been a big deal since COVID at all the big companies investing in mental health and wellness programs, right? And most company-sponsored health and wellness programs have high returns because those individuals who are able to have support with their health and wellness end up with greater productivity and performance, and they have reduced healthcare costs. Similarly, when I ask you, what can you do to be more mindful or to be more productive at work, probably people might say, I'm gonna get up earlier, drink more coffee, focus more, have different work habits, do Pomodoro or whatever it is. But most people don't think of incorporating mindfulness, right? No one thinks being more mindful and meditative at work is gonna actually make me a higher performer or more productive. But the research over and over again shows that if you incorporate mindfulness, just being present, breathing and not being so in the rush of things all the time, you actually increase your productivity and you also become a higher performer because you increase your engagement with your job, you reduce stress, and you improve the relationships with yourself and the people around you. Yep.
I'd actually love to ask a quick question. So
Of course.
On that first point, how would you recommend for smaller businesses that don't have the resources to invest in professional mental health or wellness programs to be intertwined with their business, and when you still kind of know each of your employees on a personal basis, how would you recommend either checking in on them or providing support for them in a way that's feasible for a smaller business to encourage their well-being and help their performance?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. It's one that I'll touch on a little bit later, but really I think being conscious of this and building an environment where you're able to have relationships with your people and talk about these topics and support each other through whatever they're going through. So I'll tell some tangible examples of our company, and Jorge's been the one specifically to actually sit us down and push us to support each other. And we've had specific stories of people on our team who have been going through mental and emotional difficulties. And once we're able to support them and talk to them about what they're going through and give them, advice on how to do that, they've been able to actually take control of their own mental health, incorporate kind of the practices they need, and show up better for themselves or family and for, their job as well. So that's a super good question. I'll touch on that in just a second. I have one last point on the last slide. And the very last one is really work-life balance, right? People think about work-life balance as kind of, having work on one side, but not taking it too seriously, and then, having things in your life that are balanced, and no one thinks about work-life balance in the context of improving your productivity, right? If you want to improve your productivity, screw that, screw work-life balance. You can sleep when you're dead. Let's just work as hard as we can, right? But again, the research shows that work-life balance makes you more productive at work, and it makes you a higher performer. In fact, a lot of companies have been doing 4-day work weeks where one day of the week you literally just don't show up to work, and consistently the employees at 4-day work weeks are more productive and higher performers than those working 5 days a week because they're more engaged, they're less likely to leave, and they take the time at work to be much more productive because they're able to have time outside of it and build that space for themselves. Amazing. So the other reason that emotional well-being matters for entrepreneurship is that entrepreneurship is a long-term journey, right? I heard a lot of really awesome ideas that people are working on. And sort of my question for you is, as you look in the future, what kind of venture or ventures are you looking to build? What is your vision in terms of a company or what you want to change in the world? But most importantly, what is your timeline, right? As everyone just thinks about this for 30 seconds, I guarantee no one's saying, my venture is a lemonade stand. My vision is to start in December, sell 20 lemonades a day by January, and then sell by February, right? Everyone has much longer visions where if you really think about it, you might be working on this project for the next 3, 4, 5, or even more years, right? For myself personally, I want to help people with their mental health. Building a company, building technology, building a network is very difficult. And as I look at my company at Horizon Mind, my timeline probably is around 5 to 10 years to really get to a level where we're able to help people across America, across the world, across rehab centers, across campus health centers, across school districts, across juvenile and prison centers. That stuff takes time, right? So if you look at the average stats on a startup, it takes 7 to 10 years to exit successfully from founding to the exit or the IPO. And then that's assuming that you have a successful one off the bat. And as many of you guys know, it takes many failures before success, right? So the average failure rate for startups is 90%. So if people are really serious about this entrepreneurship journey, they have to realize anything they build has a very long timeline to it. And their whole journey as a whole, because there might be failures, has an even longer timeline, right? And something I always say is you can ignore your mental health for 2 weeks if it's final season. You can ignore it for 6 to 12 months if you're going through a certain period of being really busy. But you cannot ignore your mental health for 2 years, for 3 years, for 5 or 10 years, right? Entrepreneurship is a nonlinear, long-term journey. Not only can you not make it if you ignore your mental health for that long, but emotional well-being and mental health is actually the foundation to maintaining the drive, commitment, resilience, and health it'll take to be successful with your startup and really deal with all the challenges that you know will come along the way, right? Next slide. And then the last thing I think that makes emotional well-being really important to me is that if you're an entrepreneur, it really means being a leader, right? You're not an employee at a firm, you're not a follower, you're someone who's setting the tone on how you do things and driving some sort of change that no one else in the world or very few people in the world are doing. So you have to be a leader. And the first thing when I think of when it comes to leadership is really being able to function at a very high level. If you think about just successful CEOs, people that are just visionary leaders, these are people that are just functioning at a high level. They have high emotional intelligence, they communicate effectively and authentically, they model positive behaviors, they build connections, they think innovatively, and they create a vision that others follow. And as I say this, I want everyone to think about what it takes to be able to perform at this high level consistently, right? I know everyone in college has had periods, probably towards the end of the semester where they're just stumbling towards the end, right? They've been grinding, they've been up till 3 a.m. every single night. They're, just trying to get through that last gen ed or essay or finals week. And in this kind of time, they feel kind of slow, they feel kind of groggy. They're able to, they're able to get by and finish that essay, get that homework, but you're not sitting there just feeling amazing, performing awesomely, doing super well socially. You're just trying to make it through that freaking end of the semester, right? So that's why emotional well-being really matters. As an entrepreneur, you have to perform at that level all the time. And in my opinion, and I don't know if this other people's experiences, there's absolutely no way you can function at that level unless you're really feeling balanced and just not burnt out and not in a difficult place, right? The other principle of leadership that I notice is that leadership is about people, right? If anyone scrolls LinkedIn, which I do like 8 hours a day now, there's so many things about, from government leaders to FBI people to CEOs on what it means to be a good leader, and it's all about empowering the people underneath you. So being a good leader means building trust and safety within the people around you and taking care of their team, especially as other people will also be going through their own emotional health struggles as well, right? So it's sort of my argument that unless you can take control of your own emotional health, be transparent, and be doing well yourself, how can you possibly build trust and safety in other people, right? If you're not transparent and taking control of your emotional health, how can you possibly support and really understand other people who are going through it? So for me, entrepreneurs or leadership means functioning at a high level and building that trust and safety in the team. And you cannot lead by example or create a culture of transparency if you are not transparent and take ownership of your own mental and emotional health. So that was part 2, really understanding why emotional health matters for entrepreneurs. Are there any questions before I continue? Awesome, fantastic. So this is the part I'm most excited about, which is giving everyone tangible tips to achieve emotional well-being over the long term. Emotional well-being, we can talk about it all day. We can talk about, mental health, but we really have to be mindful and incorporate practices in our lives that allow us to achieve this, whether things are going well or difficult. So I've made a list of 6 or 7 of my practices that are most important to me. But before we begin, can we go back on Menti real quick? I know some people already shared in the introductory part, but I'd like just one more time for people just to give a couple of examples of well-being practices that they use currently or that they might consider using in the future. The same. Cool, this is awesome. I see stretching, reading, dance, music, deep breathing, walking outside. That's my favorite. Gratitude lists, smiling more, doing things I enjoy doing, sleeping 8 hours minimum, eating healthy, having regular work hours in a specific place, no checking emails after working hours. That's a really good one. Meditation, mindfulness, walking, intentional practices, breathing, somatic practices like stretching, okay, slowing down, eating well, emotional release, controlling my emotions, staying emotionally centered through the highs and lows of, is there like another word at the bottom there? Entrepreneurship, meditation, music, reading to books, listening to long version videos instead of small clickbait videos. So almost training your brain to enjoy hard things. That's freaking awesome. In the gym. So yeah, these are really awesome self-care practices. And a lot of you guys are way ahead of where most people are at this age, right? So I think what many people reference is the basics. This is what every doctor, therapist, and good friend will tell you. And unless you do this, I mean, everything else is kind of irrelevant, right? So sleep, get your 8 hours of quality sleep, choosing a diet that works for you in terms of like just physically, mentally, energy, having exercise built into your routine, and then having spaces to incorporate mindfulness and meditation. In addition to that, one of my favorite, this is one I've learned a lot from mentors ahead of me, really is aligning work with values, right? Everyone, whether or not you've really articulated or figured out, has a core set of values or the things that you really care about. So what are your personal values or things you care about? What kind of missions do you want to support? How do you want to live your life? For me personally, my values are companionship, compassion, and peace. My mission is to help people recover from trauma, to transcend whatever situation I'm put in, and then to also have kids who are wiser than I am. And in terms of living my life, I want to live my life in a state of balance where I have all the elements that I really care about, as well as with people that I feel comfortable with and have similar values. So these are my values in life. This is what I'm going for. And I really have focused on aligning my values with the work I do. In terms of work, it's kind of like, what type of work are you doing? What is a lifestyle of that work? What are the type of people in your line of work? And if these don't really feel aligned with your values, what kind of work do you want to do long term? And I'll send this deck out if you ever want to see it. So for me personally, the work I'm doing is a mental health technology firm. I'm working on strategy and delivery and kind of the environments of early stage startup where things are very fast and loose and there's only like 6 to 8 people in the firm, right? The lifestyle, it's full time, but it's mixed in-person remote. So some days I spend at home, some days I spend out with customers, talking to a lot of people. And I also, because we're a mental health firm, I have the ability to set my work boundaries, and I have no meetings Thursdays, and that is fantastic. In terms of the people that are in my line of work, it's a lot of technology business backgrounds, mixed with people from mental and behavioral health backgrounds. And the thing that's really meaningful to me is everyone I work with has a lot of similar values. They've gone through their own journeys, and they want to help people, right? So at least for me, nothing's perfect, but I feel like I have aligned my work with my values, which allows me to sort of be myself and thrive in whatever role I'm doing. And if your entrepreneurial journey or your business, which has a 5 to 10 year time frame, doesn't really align with your core values, how you want to live life, what type of people you want to be with, and what you want to work on, this will really slowly erode your emotional well-being and lead you to really not feel motivated over the long term. So first advice, make sure you align your values with everything you do in life.
That's awesome.
Thank you. And that will probably be the exercise for the networking session in 2 weeks, some sort of exercise on values and work. Second one is finding hobbies and presence, and it seems like everyone really understands this. And this took me probably like 5 years to figure out. For a while, I had no hobbies, right? And really, what it is about is that we all understand entrepreneurship is a very cerebral activity, right? It's busy minds, busy work, you're going all the time, and it's seen as a virtue to be constantly either working or thinking about work and not have space for yourself. And a hobby really is a space for yourself where you're able to be present, just fully be yourself and do something purely for the sake of it and not for work. And you can only perform well at work if you have a space outside of it. So the book on the left here, Stillness is the Key. It's my second favorite book of all time. It's by Ryan Holiday. If people haven't heard of him, he's a Stoic author and just one of the best guides to living that I know of. And he has a full chapter in this book about stillness, which is called Finding a Hobby. And a quote from here is that one should engage in a pursuit that simultaneously challenges and relaxes us. At leisure, we are ourselves, we are present. So a hobby really is engaging in something outside that is relaxing, but also stimulating and challenging. And it's a space where we're really ourselves and we're present and we're doing this fully for ourselves and not for any productivity or work purposes. And not only is this good for your emotional health, it really allows you to perform better and be creative, right? Who was the one that said when they stopped meditating, their flow of ideas stopped? That was you, right? It took me many, many years to figure out that, hey, being busy 24/7 isn't actually good for functioning or for creativity because I don't have space to really think and digest kind of what's going on in my life. And I've really made changes in the past couple months myself, right? So it's really about, creativity. I don't know if we have any Malcolm Gladwell fans here. Amazing author. You like Malcolm Gladwell? Have you read Outliers? Okay, dude, such a good book. And he basically makes the point that in a study, Nobel laureates compared to general scientists were nearly 3 times as likely to have a creative hobby, right? So if you think about the greatest scientists, the Einsteins, the Turings, maybe some people thought they were brilliant just because they worked longer hours, right? But instead, if you look at many of the greatest scientists, they weren't just nerds who only cared about what they're doing. They were musicians, they were comedians, they were dancers. The ones who really succeeded weren't the ones who only focused on their academia and their work, but they were the ones who actually built lots of hobbies outside because that allowed them to really be creative and think about and process things outside of work. So hobbies are critical to your emotional well-being, but it also just makes you more of a visionary and creative person, the person you want to be, right? A third one here is therapy and coaching. I think therapy is pretty self-explanatory, but professional coaching is something that people don't talk about much. And as you get more into your entrepreneurial journey, you're probably going to have access to a lot of professional coaches. A lot of people on our team, Joe Delgado is a certified coach. And what a coach really is they're not a therapist. They're someone who's done their work and been through their journey, and they're there to really understand you, understand what your goals are, and help you achieve those goals in a compassionate and empathetic way. So for example, executives at companies oftentimes get coaches to really help them with their new roles and their performance. And executive coaching has a huge return on investment based on factors like increases in productivity and employee retention, right? So people might not feel comfortable going to therapy to talk about, their childhood stuff, but if we're just talking about the context of being a better entrepreneur, everyone cares about confidence, communication and leadership, values, personal growth, relationships, working with others, and a professional coach is almost always worth it, and they're people that will help you identify your goals, identify where you fall short, and help you work on things like confidence and relationships and growth. Awesome. So we got 2 more here. This is sort of touching on your question, Ben, from earlier. And this is really about owning your emotions and creating a culture that does. And here's where I'll tell a couple of stories about our company. Being an entrepreneur, it's a lot of stress, right? You're kind of the man or the woman, and there's a lot of pressure to kind of hold it all together and lead by example. But everyone has things that they feel and things that they struggle with. And it's very easy to just kind of push that back down and not show it and kind of to hold kind of an appearance, right? But it's really necessary to take the appropriate actions or to recognize them, because unless you really are honest about what you're feeling and what struggles you're going through, there's no way to really take the appropriate actions and develop the appropriate skills to address them. So, our founder, he's been working this thing for 3 years. He recruited all of us. He lives in the Bay Area. He has 2 kiddos. So he's under a ton of pressure all the time. And he also feels pressure to create a safe space for all of us to work through our emotions. And as a result, he was kind of pushing all this stuff down in the back burner. And you could tell it was affecting him, right? He wouldn't talk about it, but clearly there was a lot on his plate. And once he learned to be open about what he was going through and actually talk about it with the team, he was able to really kind of build the space he needed and realize that other people could step up in his absence and he didn't have to do everything. And he was able to actually take the appropriate actions and develop the appropriate coping skills to deal with his struggles and regulate kind of the emotion and pressure he was feeling. So I think everyone personally should be transparent about this stuff because they can take actions after that. But it's also really important to do this with your team and create a culture where the team can be transparent about this, right? And again, I'll have to thank Jorge for this. We were in a team meeting. He just kind of shows up. He gave us all like this little dad talk, and he's like, guys, you have to take care of each other and talk about what you're going through. And what we realized is it's really important to create a culture where everyone on the team can be transparent about their struggles. And then once they do that, the whole team supports them to really help them understand what they need to do better and be resilient. So we had another co-founder. He's been going through some emotional difficulty, and he was just open about it. He said, for a little while, and this guy's super busy, right? He works full-time at a concert company. He's a co-founder at our company. He has his own biotech firm. He's doing like all sorts of stuff, and he's a very high performer. But as a result, he wasn't taking care of himself, and he was talking about how some behavioral issues that he had had since he was like in middle school started popping up, and he just pushed through it and decided he didn't want to deal with the stuff because it was too complicated, right? As you can imagine, pretty soon he was suffering personally and professionally. And then at some point he decided to both take ownership himself, but also start sharing with the team the things he was going through kind of in terms of his mental health and also stuff that happened with his personal life. And once he did that, we're able to support him, give him kind of the space he needs. And now he's at a point where he's taking care of himself physically. He has a bunch of mindfulness practices that I know for sure he was not doing 6 months ago. He's mountain biking every weekend. He's getting sleep. He's not drinking alcohol or taking other drugs. He's working on his relationship with his family. And you can just see in the way he's showing up for himself and with us has completely changed because he was able to be open with himself about it, but also tell us what was going on so we could support him the best way that we could. So Ben, hopefully that was helpful. It's really just about being there with the people on your team, right? And then the very last one, as you guys know, mental health is really an investment, right? It doesn't happen overnight. It's something that you have to recognize, and then over time, through trial and error, build various practices that work for you. So it's really about investing and maintaining your own practices to be successful and resilient, but also investing in other people who share similar values that you can talk to about difficulty and challenges, right? Once I kind of realized this, I realized I wanted other people that I could be transparent about this with. And whereas like 2 or 3 years ago, I could probably talk to this with like a few of my close friends, pretty much every single close friend I have now, I can talk this stuff about and be fully transparent with, which is just a really good support system in my life. So again, Adam Grant says that too many people wait until they're exhausted or depressed to make change or seek help. Mental health isn't something to put on the back burner. We can't keep good habits in storage until we need them. Mental hygiene should be as ingrained in our daily routine as dental hygiene. So just a reminder here, your best, everyone does their best all the time, but your best looks different each day. Some days it's here, some days it's up here, some days it's back down, all the way up. So everyone's best does not look the same each day. And then in terms of things that you can invest in with the potential return on investment, bonds, you can make a little bit of money. Stocks, you can make a bit of money. Learning, it's obviously gonna get you far, but your mental health has a huge return on investment. So with that being said, I wanna thank everyone. If people wanna add me on LinkedIn, I would love to get to know you and kind of keep up with what you're doing in your professional lives. And just a reminder as well, every month there's the first presentation, which is more content heavy, and then a session which is more activity-based and networking. You just kind of meet people, talk. It's kind of like social hour, but based around the same topic. I will have some exercise around, values and work, aligning those to maybe like hobbies, other practices, whatever people are interested in. So if this was helpful for you, I would love to connect with you and see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Daniel mentioned it, but I'll actually be sending you a debrief email that does have his slides attached, so you'll all get that. And then there's also a survey on each of your tables on that big blue piece of paper with a QR code. Just kind of lets us know what you think about the content we're doing here, as well as taking suggestions for future sessions on what we do. So that's really helpful for specific things, thinking about accounting, marketing, sales, and you name it. We can talk about it or find somebody who's well on our ball with us. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on that, if you wouldn't mind. And with that being said, you're free to go, or is another awesome people in the room. Thanks.
Thank you.
It's so awesome.
I appreciate it.